this week. So I'll go first. Amanda Garces. Everybody kind of knows me, I hope. What is keeping me warm is nothing. Nothing is keeping me warm. I am trying, and I'm spending a lot of money on oil and wood. It's what I didn't realize until this year. But I am committed to being warm, and so I'll just be broke. I just won't spend money on food, but on wood. And yes, I'm doing great. I am very optimistic of this week for some reason. So maybe it's the 5,000 milligrams of vitamin D3 that I ate today, but it's working. And I'll hand it over to Greg.
Good morning, Greg Jager, South Burlington Police. Excited to get back to this. It's been a minute. Excited to see where we're at. Have a vacation coming up next week, so I'm excited for that as well. That's what's keeping me warm. Headed down south for a little bit. And Justin.
Hey, Justin Stedman, Fish and Wildlife, and I am also being kept warm by firewood because I get my own, and so I spent yesterday doing it, and I was sweating like a son of a gun because it was like 32 degrees and sunny, so it was a good deal. So get warm getting it together, get warm splitting it, and get warm burning it. So that keeps me warm too. Oh, sorry, and I'll go to Glenn.
Hi, Glenn Boyd, Department of Corrections. Getting over a really nasty cold, and I have a little space heater here that's keeping me warm today. And I'll go to Kim.
Hello, everyone. I'm Kim McManus. I am now with the Department of State's Attorneys and Sheriffs, so I am no longer in this meeting as your legal advisor, but I am Tim Luder-Dumont's proxy. He just moved up to become executive director here. What's keeping me warm this week? It's not 5 degrees, so it actually felt pretty warm to me walking out my door this morning. Anything 25 and above is like borderline spring in Vermont. So yeah, I was pretty happy today, actually. And my new job is keeping me warm because I'm running around trying to figure it out. So warm inside my brain. Let's go to Daniel.
All right. Hi, everyone. Good morning. I'm Daniel. I'm a community member, a part of the NAACP down here in Windham County. Really excited to get back into this work. What's keeping me warm? I have a dear friend who works for Patagonia. So every now and then he'll send me a big jacket. So he sent me one last winter, and it's a game changer. So small California flex, but yeah, that's keeping me warm. And thank you, Angelo, for that. I know it's a little late, so I don't know. Dan, have you gone? Dan's next if you haven't.
Hey, Dan Bennett, VSP, Fair and Impartial Policing. The only thing that's keeping me warm is the thought of an early spring. So let's hope that happens.
Susana.
Sorry.
Hi, everybody. Sorry I was late. I am Susana, Racial Equity Director for the state. What's keeping me warm is I will empty my entire bank account to keep the heat up. I don't care. I don't care what it costs. Also, I drink a lot of tea. So in the wintertime, I'm very well hydrated because I'm always drinking tea to stay warm. So that is it. And also slippers really matter. They matter in your life. I'm going to pass it over to Karen. Karen, our prompt is what's keeping you warm.
All right, great. Thanks, everybody. I'm so sorry to be a little bit late. I'm Karen Transgard Scott. I use she, they pronouns. I work at the Vermont Network Against Domestic and Sexual Violence, where I am now the co-executive director. We just moved to a new model. I don't know if I'm supposed to say all that. What keeps me warm? I have discovered the beauty and joy of long underwear and find myself, I know everybody wants to know this. So, back in the day when I was a kid, remember the long underwear from like the 70s that was all like that waffle material? The materials have really evolved. And, these incredibly warm, I don't know what the heck they're made of, probably some terrible petroleum product, but they're so warm. The modern long underwear is really pretty amazing. And I find myself wearing it not only when I'm out hiking, but also for days when I'm sitting at my desk in the basement and it's so cold down there. And I just really, really love it. And the other thing is tea. Suzanne, I'm with you. Lots of tea. And I guess I want to say I love tea with lemon and honey. So I feel like I'm, kind of feeding two birds with one stone in that it's just filling me up with the antioxidants of honey, raw honey, and also fresh lemon, which is, all vitamin C. So I have no idea who's gone and who hasn't gone. Raise your hand, I guess, if you haven't gone, and I'll call on you. Well, Lisa,
Well, let's
go
leave
for it.
Lisa for last so that
Oh, okay. Then I saw
you
Chris
can
raise his
do
hand.
all kinds of things. Chris.
Good morning, everybody. Chris Burkell, Director of the Vermont Police Academy. What's keeping me warm is the friction and the pressure of everything that needs to get done. So that's keeping me warm. I will say two things that have me a little excited today. One is I'm actually seeing the ever elusive Susanna Davis live on screen. And number two, we are, I think, a big step closer to potentially having a FIP trainer on board. That Lisa started with screening and brought us some good candidates. So we're getting close.
Great.
I think that
Lisa.
leaves me.
And then you
Good
can do
morning.
all the introduction.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. Nice to see you. Lisa Ryan, she, her pronouns. I am the new Community Inclusion Director here at the Academy and VCJC. I started mid to late November. Everything is going well so far. I'm really excited to be here. We have wonderful staff here at the Academy, and it just really feels like a family. So a little bit more maybe just about me for those of you that don't know. I was raised in Rutland. That's where I live. For the previous 2.5 years, I was the inaugural Associate Dean of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion at Vermont Law and Graduate School in South Royalton. So I am enjoying the much shorter commute to the Academy every day, for sure. And I have a background in conflict resolution and mediation, restorative justice, DEI, and I'm really looking forward to working with everybody here, the Academy, the whole VCJC, and really I'm responsible for, I think, developing policies, looking at everything through a lens of fair and impartial policing, working with community stakeholders and police departments. And I'll just say one thing I'm really looking forward to is the 119 class coming in on February 3rd. So I came in at the tail end of the 118 class. So I didn't see much, but I'm really looking forward to kind of watching it from beginning to end and seeing kind of how I can help and where I can fit in. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Lisa. Welcome. We're so
Thank
lucky
you.
to have you in this state and this work.
Thank you.
I was like 119. Oh, that's my birthday, but that was not what you were talking about. Okay, so next in the agenda is public comment. I don't think we have any members of the public here today. So we will move on to the next one, which is chair election. So I would like some nominations for chair, please. Anybody? You can unmute and not talk all at the same
I'm
time?
not volunteering, Amanda. I'm thinking, didn't we elect Daniel as our co-chair?
Yes, we
Last
have
time?
vice
Okay.
chair. Uh-huh. Yeah,
Or
co-chair.
vice chair.
Yeah,
I
thank you.
like co-chair
Vice chair.
better. Yeah, I like co-chair better.
So Amanda, just to clarify, this is, you're still looking for someone to take on the chair position so that you do not need to serve as chair.
Yeah, I mean, I think we need to have diversity of, you know, like I've been doing it now for what is it, 3 years now? 2 years? Justin, when was this change? 2 years ago or
I was
3?
gonna say more than that, isn't it? 2 or
3
3.
years.
Yeah, 2 or
Yeah.
3.
Yeah. So I am willing to stay for a little more, but I think that it's good to always have different folks doing it. And I've been already doing it for 3 years. So, and Daniel and I had a good conversation yesterday. So we talked about like what co-chairship means. And I'll be happy to kind of support for a little bit. Chris, you want to say something?
I'm interested in the predicament that you're facing, is that you'd like to give and no one wants to receive. This is a committee that has a lot of work and a lot of work to do, but I do think that Amanda, if you're willing to continue to serve, or even if it's to help maybe guide Daniel in a new transition, that you're going to have some additional support when with Lisa being on here, as well as when a FIP trainer comes on board. So I think things are moving in the right direction, so it might not feel as overwhelming to you.
Kim.
This doesn't help in the short term, but maybe we'll give a little bit of a release valve in the future. Starting my new job, I don't feel like I could take on being chair, but I would feel comfortable putting it out there that if you needed a chair or a vice chair starting in June when the legislative session is over, and I've had a little time and space away from, like, I was so in it in the FIP policy in one way, like I'd want to be careful. But I could just put it out there that down the line, if the committee needed assistance like that, I would be more available, and I think it would be more appropriate with some time and space starting in the summer. So I can offer that. Unfortunately, I can't offer more right at the moment.
Okay. Well, I will move on and continue as co-chair with Daniel if everybody agrees. Maybe you know, like, is everybody okay with that?
I'll make a motion to accept your generous offer to me to stay on as co-chair, recognizing Kim's offer to step into a leadership role and appreciating Daniel's already position in a leadership role. I think it is a really interesting idea for a fair and impartial policing committee to look at, to really examine what shared leadership looks like, and to be, and I think it's worthwhile for us all to really be thinking about who's doing the labor of this committee and who is not. And I can say that, you know, I have not done much labor for this committee. I've been a big fan and, you know, yay for the labor that's been done. But I think that it's really worthwhile for us to recognize that, who's the labor falling to. So, Amanda, I appreciate your offer to stay on as co-chair, and although I wouldn't have space to be considered for, or stay, I keep saying co now because I'm a co-executive
It's
director,
good,
so
good.
everybody
I
has to
like
be
go. I like go.
right to stay on as chair. I don't have space currently to consider being in a leadership role that I could do justice with. I can commit to being a workhorse on behalf of the committee.
Great. Glenn, you were gonna say something?
No, I just unmuted so we could
Okay.
vote.
Okay. Okay, do I have a second for that motion?
Yeah, I'll second it.
Daniel seconds. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Okay. I appreciate all your support. Thank you. And yeah, the work moves on, and then I am hoping Daniel and I, we will co-chair. We talked yesterday that we will continue to have. We are gonna meet like on Monday after the meeting to create the agenda so that it's easier and divide the work. So that's great. And then so I have given myself more work. Now I will move to the next one. Updates from the council. Do you guys have any updates?
I saw you moving, Lisa. Go ahead. I'll let you run with that. You're muted.
Thank you. I was just going to update just about the FIP instructor that Chief already kind of mentioned. We are going through the kind of background and logistical stuff for that, and hopefully have this person on board relatively soon. And there were different folks who were on the panel for the interviewing. We felt really good about this candidate. They currently live out of state, but have ties to Vermont and have lived in Vermont for a really long time. So they feel like they are coming back home. And so I'm really excited about this. And I just want to echo kind of what I think Karen and Chief both said, is that Amanda and Daniel, like, I am here to support you and help guide you. And I think the FIP instructor is going to be a great addition to that. So I don't want this to seem like just more overload for you both. And Amanda specifically, I really appreciate you for maybe the third or fourth year taking on this role in leadership. And I appreciate it.
Great.
Chief, do you have updates?
Yeah, absolutely. I think from my perspective, our update would really be kind of looking forward into what Amanda's agenda was for the upcoming FIP training and the outline and what that looks like.
Yeah, it's exciting. So I'm going to share. Justin, go ahead.
I apologize. I just I wanted to wait until the elections were done, but I have not communicated this in email. But I wanted to tell the group this, that I have made the decision that I'm going to step away from the FIP committee for a multitude of reasons that I'm not going to get into, other than one of them being that my tenure with the state will be coming to an end before too much longer. I don't know the exact time frame, but I have hit my 20 years, and now it's just sort of a matter of what's right for my family. So the thing that I wanted to say is that we have I started with this committee as a lieutenant, and then through major, and now to colonel. I think I've been with the committee like 7 years or something, 6 or 7 years. And it has evolved immensely. And I'm so happy to hear about a FIP coordinator within the academy. I mean, when we started this thing, we didn't know what we were doing. So, or when I was at least in the early stages of it, and it's really come a long way. We have a young lieutenant that if the committee is willing to accept a nomination, I'd like to ask to join our next meeting. I think he's part of the DEI work here at the agency, and is he's a critical thinker, and he's a good guy who I will say he can be a little challenging because he doesn't just accept people's word. He wants to see the evidence for things. He's a good person, and he's a good guy, and I know he will do a good job for a number of years to come. So I don't want to hijack any more of this, but I don't know the formal process, other than I know I had to let the chair know and the director know, and I wanted to say it to everybody on the committee, because it is very important work, and it is a hard decision, and I'm going to stop talking and turn off my camera, because I'm going to turn off my camera because it's a hard decision to make. So anyways, that's that.
Well, Justin, I have appreciated you so much for all these years. And I have felt so welcome by you, and you have been so gracious and so loving, and so you will be missed. Who am I going to talk about my cold and about the warm weather? But
I'll still buy you coffee, Amanda. I still come into Montpelier, so I'll still buy you coffee.
So I appreciate you a lot, and yeah, what is right for you. I would just, so we've done like the proxy thing, and I wonder if well, and that's the Chris's decision of how that process works, but I just want to
Absolutely, and
say
obviously, whatever you all decide is your decision. I wanted to make sure that I had a viable option if that was helpful or wanted, and if there's a different direction, then obviously that's your purview. So,
Justin, can you share who this person is?
oh yeah, absolutely. It's Wes Butler, who I think you're familiar with because he does a fair amount of stuff. So yep, I talked to him. This has been a while in coming. It's just we've been in flux with not having a chair, so I've been sort of, I don't want to say I was like trying to spring it on you, but I was waiting till that got situated before I did anything. But yeah, I believe Chief. So.
No, absolutely. I mean, if the committee is looking and welcomes your suggested change or replacement, we can certainly send out a letter formally welcoming him to the committee.
Justin, what does transition look like for you? I don't want to just like.
So no, well, that's partly why too. I know I don't want to seem like I'm stepping out right when the work gets started, but that's the other reason is I know this is getting started with, and so I've briefed him a little bit on it, but I will certainly help him in any way that he needs, and I'm happy to lend support if necessary to the transition. But I'm not leaving state employment anytime right off, but I'm not here for the long term, and he is. And I sense that this committee is moving in a direction where longevity will be important to. I think that, as you remember, Amanda, that was one of the things that really interfered with our work early on, was the fact that the whole committee that had done all the work prior disappeared. And so, he's got another 15 or 20 years and I don't. So not that the work's going to take that long, but it never ends. So anyways, I'll do whatever needs to happen. But my thought was to invite him I wanted to talk to the group. If you all accept him and as a replacement, then I'm happy to join next month or let him sort of just jump right in and then just support him in any way that he needs. However y'all want me to do that, I'm happy to do.
I would love for you to keep for a couple of months and bring him in
Sure.
so that he can answer questions with you, if that's okay with you.
Absolutely. Yep, certainly.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll be the silent partner.
That would be great. Thank you.
And thank you all for the very nice comments in the chat. Thank you. Appreciate it.
You are appreciated. Thank you. Okay, with that blow, I will share my camera. And oh no, I will share my screen. And so, Lisa, did you want to do this or do you want me to do that?
I think you can do it.
Okay.
And I'll jump in wherever.
Okay. You can see this?
Yep.
Okay. So what we did was like take all of our meetings, broke it down in a document that you saw, like that crazy Excel spreadsheet with all the conversations. And then we kind of narrowed it down. So we didn't meet for 2 months and the work needed to keep going. So Kim, Liz, and I like talked and like, so what we did was kind of we broke it down into 3 pieces. And Kim, also you can like chime in as well anytime. Broke it down into 3 pieces that we believe the 2025 training should encompass. So the first one was the overview of policy changes, given the brief background on how we came to this, what seemed really important to impart that knowledge. Detailed breakdown of recent updates to the policy, what changed, what did not change, discussion on confirmation bias's impact on interpreting the policy, and realistic scenarios to simulate complex situations officers may encounter. That was kind of like a lot of the conversation that happened. With the second piece being really important around the interaction with federal immigration authorities, that was a big conversation that we had. So what would that look like was what communication with federal partners and other state agencies look like, what was the permitted communication and interaction, what is impermissible communication, that is also like dealing with handling car stops, domestic violence incidents, terror stops in the context of the FIP policy and what that looks like. And being able to understand what the difference between federal civil immigration law and federal immigration law is. So that what that looks like is clarifying the difference in rights regarding legal representation in immigration versus criminal context, the immigration process overview, educating on various immigration procedures and the rights immigrants have with these processes, fair and impartial policing and its broad implications for protected groups. So we had a lot of those conversations. And the distinction between civil and criminal law policy. And so for the protected groups was like this idea that many folks felt that this was an immigration policy, which it isn't. And so being able to have this conversation of like the broader FIP policy. And like protected classes, what are those was the third piece. Definitions of diverse populations, including people with disabilities, refugee immigrants, intersectionality, overview of the importance of inclusive policies and practices, incorporating the history of policing. I know it's a lot, don't get scared, we have a plan. Challenges faced by people with disabilities, communication barriers, physical accessibility, cultural and linguistic considerations for refugees and immigrants, sensitivity to trauma and its impact on interactions with law enforcement. And then we talk a lot about language access. I think you read it. I'm not going to read the whole thing. But language access and the importance of that, while the challenges, the considerations, using demographic data. And then a really big important thing around demographic and data collection, this idea brought forward by Susanna to distinguish between tracking disparity and profiling individuals, which was a concern by some of our respondents to our surveys, and addressing that common concern regarding the balance between categorizing individuals for statistical reporting and avoiding profiling. And so it was like we needed to create learning objectives, what are the training methods or emphasis on scenario-based trainings and testing materials. So even though there's a lot of pieces, we knew that it is close to impossible being able to do all of those in 4 hours that we have. So between Kim, Lisa, and I, we came out with this idea, and I gave it to Lisa.
Thanks, Amanda. And Kim, like, feel free to jump in at any point. So I think what we talked about is really focusing on part one, the overview of on the 2024 policy changes. Part two, the interaction with federal immigration authorities. And then moving to that data piece. So yeah, the demographic and data collection. Not to say that we're not going to kind of weave the lessons and information of protected classes like through all of that from that lens, but we just don't have enough time to focus on that for this training. And things like language access as well. So what I'm really hoping is that, you know, once we have our FIP instructor on board, we can work with them to create some like in-service trainings or one-off opportunities for these things to be really focused and honed in on. But for the 2025 training, really focusing on those other three things. And so we have been reaching out to folks who we have considered and thought would be good for trainers. And really, we're thinking about a law enforcement officer, an attorney, and then specific to the demographic and race data, somebody from Susanna's office. So would love to kind of talk through that with you all and see what your ideas are, if you have folks to suggest to deliver those. But I will say that I have sent an email to Chief Jen Frank to see if she would want to take on the role of the law enforcement from their view. And we have a meeting, Amanda and I, next week with Molly Gray from the Vermont Afghan Alliance. And I know that she has some immigration attorneys that she's going to also bring to the meeting, so we can talk about how they can help support us. But they have been very interested in supporting us in this work. And then I think Susanna, you're still kind of on the fence, and maybe we can talk about here what that might look like for you or for folks in your department to kind of help with that stuff. So that's kind of where we're trying to land. The other piece that I'll say is we're really thinking about how to deliver this training well and in the most accessible way. So although I appreciate and I actually prefer in-person trainings, the Academy has a newly formed relationship with PEG TV, which is Rutland County's community access channel, and who can also push it out through other community action agencies across the state. So really looking at doing this virtual, but really well, doing it like we could do it live virtual or recorded. We know that we don't get a lot of folks here when we ask them to come for many reasons, right? Because of scheduling and work and things like that, to come here to the Academy. And I'll say again, like in future years, you know, we will figure out how to have a hybrid option for that. But because, you know, it's the 13th of January, we feel like we're on a little bit of a time crunch. We want to push this out right. We want to use professional equipment. We want to have all the things accessible as we can. So that's kind of where we're leaning and where we're headed. So I'll open it up to see if Kim wants to add anything else, Chief, and if you all have any questions, concerns, suggestions.
I just want to add before I give it to Kim that yeah, like for us was important. Like I see these protected classes as really whoever's doing the training really just needs to embed that part into it. That is not a standalone, but that it should be kind of like a requirement that when they are delivering the training, they are taking some of that and embedded into the actual conversation.
And Amanda, that was going to be my follow-up comment. Lisa summarized everything I knew from when I departed about how we had worked on this. And so much of this many of the pieces can collapse into, like, they're not all standalone, they're all right, like woven together. So what's great about this document is that when the trainers are secured, you can share this with the trainers to say, you know, here are what we would ideally like to touch on, and be able to really cross-reference and see what gets touched on and then what doesn't because of time. Then the Academy knows, like, okay, that's a great standalone or separate training, right? That's like not mandatory, but part of that annual series. But at least you'll have this list to cross-check and not feel like anything gets missed, so to speak. And the folks that you've reached out to, fantastic. Like, I think if Molly Gray or some of the immigration attorneys could hop in, that would be amazing. Jen Frank is an excellent communicator, and I think she really has a good handle on the policy changes. So I think she would be wonderful. I'm wondering if any of the other folks on here have other suggestions, just because I know she takes on a lot. So I don't know if we have, or if we'd want a tag team of someone from a municipality and then maybe someone from state and or a sheriff's department. I don't know if we'd want 2 law enforcement officers or from 2 different parts of the like sort of different sized agencies. I don't know if that would matter, and I would defer to the law enforcement officers on here of what they thought about that.
Greg, you had your hand up.
I answered my own question. I was going to ask a question, but I answered that. I do think it would be interesting to have representatives from a border agency versus another agency. You know what I mean? I think we see some real different interactions with this policy based on the geography of the state and where the agencies are. I think that would be interesting. Just my 2 cents. I started going down another rabbit hole, which we don't need to go into, about like the 119th, the actual academy class versus the in-service trainings, which I think is another can of worms or another project for later on. So I'll table that for now.
Any other comments?
Amanda, I can chime in just a little bit. I think one of the things from my perspective, this is all of this is great conversation. I appreciate this outline for all the things that were worked on and things that are important to folks. One of the I don't want to say it's a frustration, but the reality is it is a frustration, is this is important work and it's not something that can be thrown together quickly. And yet that's exactly what has to happen. We're already behind the 8 ball of when this is supposed to be delivered. And part of that is just because of the council and stakeholder being able to get the FIP policy approved, and then talking about moving forward with what does that look like for training. And then the one thing that we continue to be reliant upon is folks that are willing to step in and help us with the instruction, because, and this will be different next year, but because there was not somebody solely appointed for that. So one of the things that I think for me is important, not only this time, especially this time, but moving forward, is that our partnership with PEG TV, which we're going to develop to make this first training accessible to everybody. 1, because we're going to be behind the 8 ball a little bit time-wise, but 2, because I don't know if I know from most law enforcement partners, they can speak to some of the training that they've seen online, and it's horrible. And I'm done with that. We want something that's professional, that's communicated well to people, and that I would love to see FIP training be something that people are excited to come to and interesting to see, because it will be so diverse and different from things that they've had in the past. And it will be relevant to what they need to be successful out in the field. So, Greg's comments about, it would be interesting to have a person that works within the border community that interacts with federal agencies on a regular basis, have their input. Absolutely, 100% agree. Getting someone to devote that time or that exposure to us and make themselves available is where the problems always seem to come into play. So I always look at things from a kind of, I know this isn't the best perspective, from a negative, what are all the problems? What are all the hurdles that we're going to have to meet? And I rely on people with the mindset and the personality like Lisa to keep pushing all those positive things ahead that we're working towards to get to a better place. But I think we can interweave a lot of this even in those 3 buckets when you start talking about, scenario-based training. And we had already kind of gone through a mindset of what does a scenario-based training look like for a law enforcement officer when they make a car stop, and going through that. But then each of the factors change during that car stop and decisions that they have to make based on what the FIP policy is and making the right decision. And then the whole piece with language access. And lastly, I don't want to lose sight of, especially in this newly created one, is data that Susanna's office can work with that has some real data that's helpful and that isn't missing the mark on certain things. And what do we do as a better job to train folks so that the law enforcement community that is required to collect data gets data that's useful, that we can really make some changes moving forward. So I'll leave it at that and listen to other folks' comments on where they want to go.
Karen?
Well, first I want to just say thank you so much for the work that that you've done on this draft. I think it looks really good, and appreciate also, Chris, your comments about wanting to make sure that the training is as of high quality and impactful as possible, and I support all of that. I agree with Greg. I think it'd be very interesting to bring some perspectives in from the border communities. I'm just gonna speak. This may sound a little political, but I don't mean it to be political. It's just the reality. So first of all, yes to border community leaders, and I think that we know, who supports the policy, and we for sure know who doesn't. I have a curiosity to know what might happen under the new federal administration to a policy like this, and part of me wants to get this training done and in place so that it can withstand any challenges. And I'm not even talking about legal challenges, I'm talking about cultural challenges from folks that feel emboldened by the new federal administration, or even, direct challenges from the new federal administration. I love your choices for folks that could help with the training. I think that those are really solid. And if there's anything that, I can do to support that, I'm really happy to do that.
Susanna?
Yeah, sorry, first of all, I hope I haven't been a distraction in this meeting. I had kind of a situation here today because some people want to eat tropical plants and the soil that they're growing in. And this, you're laughing, but it's I just had to waterboard her. This is not funny.
Oh my God, I'm so sorry.
You know what? This is
I'm
recorded. I
sorry.
shouldn't have said that. It's fine. Everything's fine.
Sorry.
I also like this curriculum. I think that it's really great. I agree that we want to do this thoughtfully and not rush it, but at the same time, we kind of want to, there's urgency to getting this in place, and we want it to be thought out and well planned. And so meeting the balance between that, I'm in agreement that that's going to be a difficult one to strike, but it's important. I'm curious to know, is there going to be opportunity for trainers themselves to interact with each other and sort of cross prepare? One of the things that I am wanting to make sure is that nothing that comes out of our office is going to be in conflict with the law, and also that it feels like all of the pieces are, I think I'm struggling with words today. You know how when you're on a commit, you know how when you're on a committee and everyone writes a different part of the report and it sounds like 8 different voices? I'm wondering if we can create a training that sounds as much as possible like a unified voice, even if it's being delivered by different trainers, recognizing that everybody has different styles and not everything doesn't have to conform necessarily, but I just want it to flow correctly. So is there that opportunity, I think, for cross comparing of notes, I guess?
Yeah, my wondering, sorry to jump in. I hear you, Susanna, and the other wondering I have when I'm thinking of the trainers themselves is, do we think that we have a real understanding of the policy? Is Chief Frank and Greg I'm just giving an example, stand to train on this piece of federal immigration authorities and have different views of how that's applied and how is there like a conversation around like these are the pieces and these are the scenarios and these before they get rolled out, like here the scenario base that we're putting on, and then this is how we're going to have these conversations with offices around. I'm also wondering if Greg will be interested, since you have been deeply involved with this committee and your department, to be one of the trainers with in that too.
Well, I think it would depend. There are some potential changes coming here, so I shouldn't say much just yet, but there may be some potential changes on my end here soon, so I don't know.
I think what Susana and Amanda are saying about kind of having that unified voice and being able to like have for trainers to have the ability to interact with each other before the training going out. I mean, I think that's extremely important. So my answer to that is yes. I don't want to just record Greg and then record Susanna and then record Karen, and then have it put together. Like that's not the way we want this to look. So it is important that there is kind of an understanding. Yes, like everyone has different teaching styles, but like we're all trying to go towards the same goal here, right? And I mean, Amanda, your questions for related to the understanding the policy. I mean, we're teaching on the policy, right? We're not teaching on how it can be viewed by one agency versus the other. We have this document that's in place that all of you worked extremely hard on, and so that's what we're training on, is what we put into writing to make that policy, is my understanding and vision, really.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thanks.
So you might wonder, what are we doing here with this, since there's already movement? So I think there was, because we couldn't meet for a month and we needed to get this done. I think what I want to just maybe go around, do a round of like, yeah, I feel really good about this. I wish we could have added this. I think this piece is missing, and or this potential trainer comes to mind that I think will be great addition to a team of people, if any, or like this voice is important to me that is there. Does that sound okay, Lisa? Or
yeah,
okay. So can we go around and do that? And then there's not real, yeah. So who wants to start?
Yeah.
Daniel.
Yeah, again, I'm very excited for this work. Again, I know I kind of jumped in. I've been a part of the council a little less than a year, so I'm learning. I think it's an incredibly important work. And I really was listening to Director Breckel there, thinking about making sure ideally people are kind of excited about this. And as somebody who's been in education and teaching, that's always the buy-in. So I think that's something I'm going to really be focusing on, making sure it's not just they're checking the box, like, okay, but like actually, hey, this is an opportunity to learn. Speaking of an opportunity to learn, I'm really curious about language access and if there's any incentives for law enforcement to learn some or study, or I think, Lisa, you mentioned, one-off, because this is only 4 hours. I'm really interested in that. As some of you know, my father in California was a sheriff for many years, and Spanish is his first language. And at a certain point in his career, he was able to make a little extra. I forgot exactly the details, but it was very helpful being in the Central Valley of California, knowing some Spanish. So I would just curious, and maybe somehow that could like help some of this be more exciting for folks who are like, oh, I've always wanted to learn a little bit, or this might help my career here in Vermont. So that's what I got. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. Kim.
I think the document that was shared is a true summary of the conversations that were had during the fall and all the work that Amanda and Daniel did collecting everybody's feedback over a few meetings. So I feel like what we have in front of us is sort of the summary of all of that work in one spot. And while there's always going to be other things to do, right? Like this isn't a one and done. It's these trainings, the mandatory trainings should and will hopefully be a little different every time. And there's going to be, additional supplemental trainings. But I think this is we're in a good spot. And I think the big thing now is how can we assist the academy? Like what is it the academy needs from this committee to, as someone said earlier, and I'm forgetting who, I think it was Susanna, urgently, but, intentionally and, not rush through it, but we need to get this done. And like, what do you need from us would be, I think, our big question as a committee, moving forward.
Thanks, Kim.
So I'll jump in if you don't mind for a minute, only because Lisa is going to be the point person on gathering all this stuff and making it actually happen. But what I could use from the committee is real communication with Lisa and making those connections with those who are willing to help do either the instruction or even if it's not willing to do the instruction, how can we bring those three pieces that we're looking to put together, get it together so that somebody has it all in one place and can start moving forward with who's going to deliver that? Because we're, aside from getting the folks that are going to be willing to instruct it, it's a matter of managing studio time and or is that done collectively with all the instructors that are going to be able to do that, even if that's on different dates, or are we going to have to try to coordinate with PEG TV to go off site to try to record certain things? So I just, as with anything else, right, we want people that are willing to help, designate that time to make that happen, rather than scheduling meetings and then, we have to cancel a meeting because somebody can't make it. That the longer that we delay, in my mind, it just sends a message to law enforcement who this training is for, that it's not as critical, and that it won't be beneficial or exciting. I can tell you and this is not just around FIP training, anything when you say to law enforcement, this is a state mandated training, it's something they have to do. It's not something they look forward to, even if it's something, even firearms is mandated training, but not everybody looks forward to firearms. Those that do like firearms are, typically on board with that. So I want to try to keep this focus. Let's not worry about how long it's going to take. Let's worry about the content that we're going to deliver, the fact that we have to show competency, that what we're delivering is actually learned. And then from this committee, what I feel like we really need is people that are committed to the time frame, knowing that Lisa's going to be trying to coordinate all this together and get it put together.
Lisa's amazing. Glenn, did you want to add something?
No, I think the work's important, and going forward, if we can make sure we schedule meetings any day except for Friday. Friday is my hardest day to meet. So, and since we're going to need quorum, we're going to need everybody on board for this. That's all I ask.
Thanks, Glenn. Dan? Oh, sorry, Karen.
No worries. Well, I can certainly attest to the lack of love for mandatory training. And my hope is that this this exercise and developing this training also gives us the platform for completely changing our domestic violence training. Because it's, what we hear is folks, it's a recorded training of 2 hours, and we hear that folks just pretty much turn on their computers and then go do other stuff. And we're missing so many opportunities. And so I don't want this to be a missed opportunity. And I really hope that we can change domestic violence training. And I know that that's not what we're talking about here. Couple things I'm thinking about. So first of all, if there's a need to do any recording in the north, our office in Waterbury can also always be considered. And Lisa, the training folks that we have, if there's any kind of training technology that we can help with, I think, you know what you're doing. The idea that we're, goals and objectives are the place, knowing why, the purpose and goals and objectives is the starting place for any good training. We use a platform called Rizuku for our online trainings, and that platform gives you a way to, like, you do a section and then you stop and you answer some questions, and then you do a section and stop and answer some questions. And I'm talking about this as if I actually know what I'm talking about. I really don't. But Lisa, the folks in our office who do.
Yeah.
And I know that they'd be happy to provide, answer your questions and show you systems. I'm 100% sure of that. I want to join Glenn in saying Fridays are hard, Mondays are great, and it'd be great to have a regularly scheduled meeting that I can get my calendar, and so that I can always be sure to be present unless I happen to be away. But I'm, committed to this committee and this work. I think it's really important, and it would be, we have a little bit of momentum right now. I'd be ashamed to lose that momentum. So again, Lisa, anything I can do, I will do
Thank
it,
you.
except for become the chair.
Thanks,
Thank
All right,
you.
thank
Karen.
you.
And just to clarify, we already have a Monday meeting scheduled once a month, which is this one. The last doodles has been because we didn't have quorum in those Mondays, and we did lose the one Monday because it happened to be a holiday. And so we kind of fell through because of that holiday Monday. But we already have the schedule for the whole year. And I believe, Lisa, you sent us our calendar invite. If you do not have it, we
Let
can
me know.
resend. But the plan is that Daniel, Lisa, and we haven't told Lisa because I just talked to Daniel yesterday, but we will have a meeting like next Monday so that we already have the agenda and work plan for the next month, so that we don't forget what we have to do. And that way, but please do make sure that you have it in the calendar. And if that month you cannot make it, if you can let us know as soon as you know, then I'll know if we're gonna have quorum or not to try to do a doodle for another Monday that month. That will be helpful. Okay. Who am I? Dan?
Yep, no issue here. Monday's work.
And how are you feeling about the work plan, the guy that we created and all what we've talked about today?
Yeah, and I have no issues with the content. It's going to be interesting to see how it unfolds, how we're going to get the training done in the time frame, but I'm sure we can do it.
Great, thank you. Justin, Greg, did you guys already say something?
I can just jump in real quick. I was actually thinking about something that Karen said earlier, which I appreciate the nature of that it's not a political comment, but I think the sooner, this is easy for me to say, the sooner this training can get rolled out, I think voices of, well, we've already seen some of it, right? That trying to manipulate, I shouldn't say manipulate, sorry. alternative interpretations, I think, are going to grow in voice and volume. And the sooner that this can be rolled out, I think it will be less distracting with those voices that will inevitably come into the conversation. And right, wrong, or indifferent, that's not necessarily for me to say. That's for the courts and everything else. But I do think the sooner this gets rolled out, the less disruption there will be to the overall learning experience for the people involved. Hopefully that wasn't too, it didn't, yeah, that's my thought. But I do like the curriculum also.
Thank you. Greg?
Taking little bits from everybody and to sort of put a bow around it, I think it is important that we have not only like a highly produced or well-produced training delivered, however, with PEG TV or however it's going to be delivered, but a well-produced with strong content, with trainers that do have a little bit of pre-meeting time so that they are speaking in one voice because of everything Karen and Justin just said, right? And what Chief Burkell was talking about. Nobody likes being told to go sit down and go to a mandatory training. If we produce a training that doesn't hit on all of these points, it's going to be a turn on, tune out kind of training, and then we're just spinning our wheels for nothing. So I think to have something to have trainers that are engaging, that have a command of the topic, who can play off of one another, right, and really like interact, and then have that delivered in a meaningful and effective way, is critically important. I think that everything that everyone is saying is important, because if we deliver a shoddy product, next year is going to be that much more difficult to have people come in and sit and listen, which is all easy to say. Hard, it's hard to actually to make it happen. I just think it's like we spent a lot of time on this, and then if we just do another like, here, watch this, check off that you were here, there's no point.
Susanna, did you want to add something?
Yeah, I agree with everything that's been said here. I like Karen's observation that you don't want it to be a missed opportunity. And when you talked about people turning on their computer for 2 hours and walking away and doing other things, I was reminded of continuing education courses that sometimes I'm in, and they'll be like they'll just sporadically be like, oh, the second code word is banana, and you have to know all the three and then say them all when you submit for your credits. That's I'm not saying we should do that, but I'm thinking about the different ways that I have seen people try to force attention during those kinds of things. So yeah, I agree. You don't want it to be seen as a joke or as something not to be taken seriously or just to be endured. And that's part of the challenge of not doing stuff in person, right? Is being engaged. It's more difficult. The other thing I was thinking of, because I think the original question that Amanda asked included the question of who else do we think could be good trainers, and something that I keep coming back to is this idea of credible messengers, right? When I was in New York, the health department, they were doing anti-gang violence work, and credible messengers was a really, really big part of it, right? Somebody who had been part of that life, then coming in and being able to share with people about why maybe that's not a good thing to do, being in a gang. And I don't mean any disrespect to any of the law enforcement people on this call, but I see very much the law enforcement community as a form of a gang. And when you think about like the blue wall and et cetera, in a lot of ways, you can see parallels here with that anti-gang violence work and what we're trying to accomplish with training with law enforcement. And so just thinking about who are the credible messengers, and I know the roster of trainers you have, to me, looks really stellar. And I'm wondering if there's somebody who is maybe not in a position of leadership, who is seen as sort of one of them, who might be considered a credible messenger in this space. And And I don't know if that person needs to be a formal part of the faculty or if I don't know, like a TA, maybe, if that's a thing. I don't know. But just I think somebody who is part of that profession, but not yet someone who's risen through the ranks enough that they are seen as being above or disconnected from that the actual on the ground policing work might be valuable to have.
Susanna, I couldn't agree with you more. And I'm going to take it a step further. I think that it would be really easy for us to say, well, that's what Lisa's job is. But I think that we actually need to find some champions among us who are white, frankly, and who, white cisgender male law enforcement officers have a lot more credibility with other law enforcement officers, if I'm being honest, than even white cisgendered females. So, to the extent that we can recruit some champions, I think I agree with you that that voice is so important.
Hey, what's Jonas doing these days? He's still in Vermont. See.
Oh, Ingrid. Oh, wait, no, sorry. Who?
Yeah, is that him?
Oh,
The ones that were the original FIP, Chris. Is that Jonas? Was that Ingrid Jonas?
Yes, she's
she's
still
still
in Vermont.
consulting, I
She's
think,
still
right?
active.
Oh, so that's not the other person. There's a guy that was in that.
Oh,
That was
Gary
very
Scott.
nice.
Harry Scott, yeah,
Is that him?
yeah,
I think he's still in Vermont.
he is. He works in Essex for the Essex School District.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. But there's another person. I have to think who it is. That I met when there was like the FIP subcommittee with the Attorney General's office at the beginning. I will look at the report. Just had a good vibe. Okay, sorry to interrupt, Susanna. I'm sorry.
You know, another thing that and I know I think I'm asking for the moon and stars right now. So, but another one thing that we tried to do, not tried to do, one thing that we aspire to do one day is to have a belt training. So we have, obviously, there's a sort of minimum mandatory equity training that we want all state employees to receive, right? And then we have sort of a crew of what we call equity liaisons, and we give them additional training because we ask more of them. But one thing that I a few years ago said I would really love to see is the opportunity for people to take more intermediate and advanced level trainings and get some kind of, for lack of a better word, badge, right, for it. It's kind of like if you say, oh, I'm Excel certified, whatever, or I have these trainings or certifications in these tech tools. We should be able to have something like that. And for you to be able to demonstrate that, whether it's like insignia or special privileges or whatever it is. And so similarly, to the extent possible, I think that another way to keep people engaged in the topic is if there's an opportunity for growth or some kind of demonstration that you are competent or that you've done more advanced certification on the topic. And again, I know a lot of law enforcement officers feel like, we're being trained to death. There's no time to do that kind of stuff. I get that. But if there's any way that we can make it feel more elective. Obviously, we're talking about a mandatory minimum, but if there's an opportunity for something that feels more elective, that leads to something that feels like a reward, I don't know, maybe it's inappropriate to try to incentivize this because it's, for a lot of people, it's life or death, right? It shouldn't be something that's incentivized, but I don't know. I get the sense that this is a form of professional development, just like all others. And so maybe there's some way that we can remind folks of that like, yes, this is something you quote unquote have to do, but you're also being made all the better for it. So that's just a little hopes and dreams. I'll water that plant occasionally.
Chris.
I think just to go off a little bit on what Susanna said, I think it's critically important for all of us to remember that when those people are identified and when they step up, that there's the recognition afterwards for the good work that they do, as opposed to incentivizing it and giving them the accolades that they deserve for delivering content that's critical to everybody's success, and that there is a certain level of expertise in order to do that.
Yes. Well, do we feel that this conversation can move? Lisa, do you have?
Yeah, I just want to add something. Maybe I didn't highlight that. Certainly, Amanda and I think Kim, you were on this conversation, talked about as part of the training, having some sort of like scenario or testimonial for people with lived experiences. So thinking about somebody from the migrant justice community, like somebody who has like interacted with law enforcement, who has experienced different things, so that we get that aspect too. So that's just something I've been thinking about. And if there are, other groups that might hold identities who would be affected and impacted by this policy, then I think it's important to talk with them and see, if and how they would like to be involved in this 2025 FIP training.
Mhm.
And we said that that could look like little snippets of videos that
Correct.
could be presented in there instead of them having to come to a bunch of trainings. Kim?
Yeah, and on that note, Lisa, you probably have this on your list when you chat with Molly, but Julio Thompson had mentioned that the Afghan Alliance, there might be already some clips of the experience interacting with law enforcement, and what Julio had mentioned that was really interesting was some of the work they had done with new Americans speaking about how they view police in their former country and how that then influenced like what their thoughts were from there, and then how that impacts how they interact with the police here. And I thought that was really powerful when Julio was speaking about it. So it's again probably on your list for when you chat with Molly, but there might be some resources already like ready to go there on that front.
That's great. No, I wasn't aware of that. So thank you for bringing that forward, Kim.
Not raising
Right.
my hand again, I promise. Oops.
Well, I think the work is continue. I think for next month, we should do some soul searching too and then I'll reach out to Lisa and Chris around like next steps for our work. I think a lot of this work needs to continue, but like more conversations about. My hopes is that we can start also, in addition to what is going to happen with the training, my hopes is that we start to think about, I hate the word, but I'm going to say work plan for the year of like, how do we institutionalize a little bit of the timeline for the biennium trainings so that we're not here in November trying to like, and Lisa and I had a good conversation about kind of like, what does evaluation look like and how do we incorporate that to ensure that not only the training is evaluated, but that there is an evaluation of what the officers are learning, so that could be all part of like this evolution of this work to institutionalize it in a way that it's also aligned with all of the work of the academy. And like we've been working with Tabitha to whatever work that she's doing. But it was so in line, and she's just like the work that we did with her, which was to look at the task of the policy itself, which was a good exercise on its own. So I think there is a lot of the future of the academies in relation to the FIP subcommittee is how do we continue to work to relate it in a bigger, in a, like in the holistic context of like everything is interconnected and not one work can be separated. So like I think of like domestic violence as one of those things that is very intertwined with this work as well. And I say that because I have friends that are currently in those situations where I'm like, what happened? Why? What did the police say to you? Why? So like thankful the network exists for them to kind of like be a liaison to this family. But it's been really interesting to kind of like just be in community with people who are facing those things and being able to be like, oh no, that's like so like not what you say to a person facing domestic violence, and like that threat is not good. So I think like there's a lot of interconnectedness with FIP and domestic violence and like things that we should be thinking about, I think. But I have too many dreams, so Chris and Lisa can put me in my place. So I give it to Lisa and then Susana.
Yeah, I just wanted to say kind of to piggyback and expand on what Amanda is talking about and with respect to like the evolution of this committee, I'd really like us all to think about, what beyond the, biennial FIP training do we want to focus on and what work do we want to do? So I think of all of you as experts and people willing to be here. So I think it's really important that we set a vision for this committee so that we're not getting to each meeting and, talking about nothing. Like I feel really good about this meeting, and I hope going forward we continue to be engaged with one another and really determine where we want to go and what that path looks like.
Thank you. Susana?
No, I didn't have anything.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Yeah, that's great. Additional thoughts on regular in-service training that continues its work on regular basis. Yes, I think that's great. Kim?
Yep. Before we leave this conversation, if we're near the end of wrapping up this part, I don't know where we are in it, but just before we take off of it, I just want to clarify our role right now with training. So the committee has recommended these areas to the academy, and now we've all reviewed them and we're saying, yes, this is what we want to be included as much as possible in the mandatory training. And now, between now and our next meeting, like nothing's holding back Lisa and Chris from pulling in these potential trainers or other folks and starting to develop this. Like they don't need to come back to this committee as like they can now operationalize this curriculum. I just want to, is that correct? Okay.
Absolutely
Yes.
correct.
Great. Okay. I just wanted to make sure because I just didn't want, I know that feeling sometimes of like, wait, do we need to check back in with the committee? So they're good to go. And then we'll update us at the next meeting, but then also bring to us like a need, like, hey, we need this from the committee to help move this forward, right?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
That's, and like, if there are folks that you all think of that could be trainers, please let me, Amanda, Chris, Daniel know sooner than later. I know some law enforcement. I certainly do not know all law enforcement. And so, who would be good, who might not be a person that we haven't thought of kind of outside the box, those credible, I can't remember the term that Susana stated, but if you have suggestions, please send them sooner than later.
Yeah, and just to clarify, they don't have to go by me or Daniel. I think Lisa and Chris, right? Unless Daniel wants to know. I
Trying
don't
to
need
keep
to
you in the
know.
loop, Amanda.
No, it's okay.
Yeah, don't.
So I think for next meeting, and Daniel and I have not talked about it, but I'm just gonna bring it up. So if everybody chime in that what I think is next steps for our next month's meeting, in addition to whatever updates Lisa and Chris have, is that we can continue start thinking of a work plan. I think like maybe we can structure that conversation of looking at dates. When do we need to start that work? Other things that Chris brought in, that additional thoughts on regular in-service training, so we can have a little brainstorming session on that. What does it look like outside of this training, in terms of like focusing on a specific subjects? That could be webinars that are right. Like there could be webinars that are on demand, right? Like for people that want to, like I love learning and I take workshops that are not mandated all the time. So I'm sure there are people like me out there. So that I think, maybe not. I think so. Daniel, do you have anything to add?
No, I mean, really, again, I'm just very excited about this year and the work we're going to do, and definitely doing my part, Amanda, so you don't feel, you don't have to do all of it, all the tasks and everything. So looking forward to talking next Monday. Thanks.
Great. Awesome. So if we don't have anybody else, so I'm going to wrap up this conversation unless if you have something more to add before I move on to our next agenda item. Great. Okay, public comment. We don't have public comment because there's nobody from the public, I believe. And so I can entertain a motion to adjourn at 12:24.
I'll make a
So-
motion to adjourn. Sorry, Glenn.
I was gonna say so moved, but you're good.
Glenn seconds.
Yes, I second.
Okay, all those in favor say bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Lisa, we're so happy to have you. Thank you.
Thank you, Amanda. And thank you so much for continuing in this role.
Oh,
I didn't want you to feel pressured, and I didn't know where you were at, but I know how busy you are, and I really,
Karen.
oops. Hi, Karen.
Do you want to come back
You
to
rang?
us?
I'm here.
Oh, did I call you?
Yeah, somebody did.
Oh,
It said Amanda.
Oh, you
did.
got to stop the recording.
oh, wait. How do
Do
I?
you need me or no?
No,
No,
no.
no. We were just
Okay,
chatting.
all
no.
right. Hey, but I'm just gonna say,